Hello and welcome to this week's edition of SportsZone. I'm your host, Eric Chiofolo, and as always, we have a fantastic show for you guys today. We will assess the 5-1 Cowboys as they head into their bye week. We'll talk some Dallas Stars hockey, and how did Colin Kaepernick perform in his first start of the season? But first, let's send it over to Tatiana Parks for our Mean Green football update.
Fresh off their bye week, the North Texas football team looks to build their momentum against the Army Black Knights. The Mean Green entered this Saturday's matchup as an 18-point underdog. However, Coach Seth Luttrell isn't worried about being labeled as such.
I've seen a lot of underdogs win football games. So really, I don't look at who's favored or not favored. It really doesn't matter. At the end of the game, at the end of the day, you can go out there and compete, and every single week underdogs win. What's an underdog?
The last time the North Texas football team faced the Army Black Knights was in 2010, where they fell 24-0. But Coach Seth Luttrell has great confidence in his players.
I have high expectations going into every game. By the end of the week, there hadn't been a game that I didn't feel like we were going to go in there and compete and have success and win the football game. So my expectations haven't changed. And I know our team, I think their expectations are growing as they gain confidence, understanding that if you prepare the right way and do what you're coached to do, you have an opportunity to have success.
You can catch the Mean Green back in action this Saturday at 11 on the CBS Sports Network. Reporting for SportsZone, I'm Tatiana Parks.
Thank you, Tatiana. Joining me now is Kyle Humans and Kennedy Miller. And guys, let's keep it here with the Mean Green. Coach Luttrell obviously is pretty confident going into this week's game with the ability for the Mean Green to force the upset. How confident are you guys?
You know, it's always nice going into this game at 500, 3-3. That's a great start to the season. It's more than anybody could have ever asked from the Mean Green. But this is a tough matchup this week for North Texas. Army, going into the season, a lot of people may have marked this maybe as a potential win for North Texas. But Army coming in 4-2, they've whipped up on some other Conference USA teams. They've whipped up on UTEP, and they whipped up on Rice pretty bad too. And they're second in total defense in the entire nation. So that's a huge stat that's glaring at an offense that still kind of struggles sometimes to get going. They've had 2 good weeks in a row. So if there were a week where North Texas could maybe potentially pull off this upset on the road, it would probably be this week.
Yeah, coming off a bye, Kennedy.
And as Kyle said, as well as we played, Army just doesn't present a good matchup for us. UNT has allowed 418 yards a game. Army blew out Lafayette, although they're not that good. They blew them out 62-7. And you know, Army leads the nation with 366 rushing yards per game. North Texas gives up 4.7 yards per carry. So it really doesn't look good when you're going up against a team that can really run the ball like that.
Now, you say how bad North Texas has been throughout the season in stopping the rush. Their last game against Marshall, they only gave up 13 rushing yards.
Yeah.
So that is improvement that you're seeing from that North Texas defense. And if they can continue to do that and really control the time of possession game, which is actually Army's top strength. They're number 1 in the nation in that. If they're able to stop that run game a little bit, they've only thrown the ball 50 times combined all year, Army has. So they like to keep it on the ground.
Yeah, they definitely want to keep it on the ground. And when you can run the ball and you can play good defense like Army, you're going to win a lot of football games. But as you mentioned, UNT has been looking pretty good. They played really well against Marshall. They're coming off a bye week, so they have some rest. They have some confidence. What did they do in Marshall, against Marshall, that was positive that helped them win that game?
Well, they were able to stop the run, and that's what I just said. 13 yards in that entire game. Now, on defense, they were also able to cause turnovers. They had the pick 6 late. They had the interception by Keyshawn McClain earlier on, and they just were able to really impose their will on defense and grow some confidence that hasn't necessarily been there in the past. So if you're North Texas, you're excited with what you're seeing, but if you get beat here this week, it shouldn't necessarily ruin the entire season. Now, if you win, you're in great shape. 4-3 with 2 other potential wins to maybe push you into a bowl game. But I'm not necessarily expecting a win this week. I think it'll be closer than a lot of people believe so. But I think North Texas, just because of the matchup problem.
Yeah, I completely agree with Kyle. I think last week we got back to our running game. And I think that's the greatness of Coach Seth Luttrell, is that even though he comes in running this spread type of offense, he still knows that we have a stud at running back in Jeffrey Wilson, who has over 600 yards already this season and 9 touchdowns. Now, to Army's credit, we also have not played good on the road. We have allowed 67 points on the road in the last 2 games. So Army, like I said, Army is just a really tough matchup. I think our defensive ends, they're a little bit undersized, and I think when Army gets that run blocking, getting it upfield, and if they can get past those defensive ends and gets to the linebackers, then I think it will be really hard for us to be able to stop them on the run and stop their nation-leading time of possession.
And let me tell you, it's been a tale of 21 so far. North Texas, whenever scoring at least 22 points this season, 3-0. Whenever scoring 21 or less, 0-3.
Interesting stat there. All right, so we're not too confident. We're not as confident as Coach Luttrell is going into this game. Then is that what I'm gathering from you here?
I'd probably agree with that. Yeah.
All right, very good. Well, hopefully the Mean Green do better than we're anticipating. But coming up next, our analysts give us the 411 on the Dallas Stars. So keep it locked on SportsZone.
We had some missed assignments that cost us. I thought we got outfought on a couple plays around the front of the net. But it wasn't just, our D being aggressive. I thought that, we didn't get enough pucks to the net. We refused sometimes to shoot it. I thought a couple lines did a great job, and we got a couple lines that didn't do a very good job.
That was Stars head coach Lindy Ruff addressing the media after last week's loss to the Avalanche. Now we have Kyle back with us alongside my Italian brother, Joey Catalano here. Guys, the Stars are off to a pretty nice start, 2-1. But before we get to that, I want to talk about their offseason a little bit. What did you think of some of the acquisitions they made? Go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, I mean, my whole point last week when I kind of gave my little preview was the biggest thing was that veteran leadership was going out and rookie inexperience was coming in. And I think that showed in the first game because Adam Cracknell was a guy who came in for the Stars, played a good portion of his career in the minor leagues, and he's already leading the team with 3 goals, 3 games in the season, and he's been a dominant factor in these last few games. So just the young guns stepping up as well as, and filling in those holes left by the veterans that they gave away has been really good to see so far.
And he had one last night as well. Another big win for the Stars. I mean, they were able to take down the Predators in Nashville last night. It was a hard-fought game. The defense stepped up more than they did against the Avalanche. I mean, it was a 6-5 loss in Denver. We were talking off air just before, 0-16 in Denver in their last trip. So they haven't necessarily had success in Colorado, but the success they had last night in Nashville, it just adds some confidence more for these Stars players.
And yeah, I mean, in addition to that too, Nashville's a top-tier team.
Oh,
they,
yeah.
They had a blockbuster deal where they got rid of their captain, Shea Weber, and brought in PK Subban from Montreal. And everyone's expecting them to be a top player in the Central Division. And when you beat a team of that caliber, it helps people to say, hey, I mean, if they're beating Nashville, this is this team, that you got to get up for.
And especially with a lot of young guys. You mentioned the lack of veteran leadership on the team, so to build a lot of confidence for those young guys is huge.
Yeah. And, I mean, even the first win that they had against the Ducks, that's a playoff team from last year. And a team that's maybe not as good as they were roster-wise on paper, and, I mean, they're 0-3 right now. But, I mean, it's still a playoff team that you won against. That's 2 teams, solid wins. You did have the one not-so-good showing in Denver, but other than that, it's been a good start.
Like piggybacking off that, though, as good as they're playing, you can't go anywhere without goaltending.
Oh, not at all.
The goaltending carousel already started up because we saw in Game 2, Antti Niemi, when he was getting flurries of shots, he couldn't make the big save, and that was a huge problem last year. Kari Lehtinen came in, and Kari Lettinen's been looking pretty good. But how long is Kari going to go until he gets that game where they're just peppering him with shots, and then Antti's going to come in? So, like all the goalies have been like temporary Band-Aids until, all right, you got to change the Band-Aid, here comes the blood. So, they have to get some gauze. They got to get someone that can make the big save, stop the bleeding. And that's going to be their biggest hurdle, I think, going forward.
And I mean, that's what hurt them last year in the playoffs too against St. Louis. You had inconsistent goalie play between Niemi and Lehtinen. I mean, Niemi before the season started looked like the sure starter just from his play in the preseason and the way he played against Anaheim. And then Colorado happened, and Colorado scored 5 goals in the first 2 periods, or first half of the first 2 periods, and it just didn't look good.
Yeah. Well, so improvement-wise, moving forward for the season, would you say goaltending is the number one thing they need to improve on?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, goaltending, and then you gotta keep the shot counts low. The Stars have given up more than 30 shots in these first 3 games. That's a stat you gotta drop a little bit. I mean, the average is like 24, 25 shots, for teams that make the playoffs. So if you're giving up shots, if you're giving up that number of shots, but you have a good goalie, you're fine. But the Stars don't have that good a goalie behind them. So when you're giving up that many shots, it's difficult.
Exactly. It puts a lot of pressure on the goalie there. Well, where do you see this team going this season in terms of playoffs? Do they have a chance to make the Cup? What are you thinking?
I mean, this team is one of the top roster-built teams in the league. They have the top offense from last year. They have gotten better on defense somewhat. Like you said, a lot of young guys are going to really have to step up. It goes back to the goalkeeping and then also how healthy the team is. Ben had the surgery in the offseason. Sagan's still not necessarily 100% yet. If those guys can stay healthy throughout the entire season, this team on paper should be the Western Conference favorite. And yes, they have to worry about maybe Chicago. I think Chicago's a sleeping giant. I know you're a big Chicago
you know what?
fan.
I'm gonna disagree with you there. I think Chicago's actually fallen down from grace a little bit. You know, they've also lost veteran leadership. They have such young talent in the organization, kind of like the Stars. But the difference between Chicago and Dallas this year is that Dallas has young guys with big game experience. Chicago does not. So that almost leaves a void in the Central Division. So, all right. You know, Dallas, even though they won the Central last year, Chicago's always thought to be, the top guy. You know, is it going to be Minnesota? Is Dallas going to be able to do what they did last year? So it'll be interesting to see. And then Colorado. Yep. Colorado, the Stars can't beat Colorado for whatever reason. And then they got a new coach. You know, they're revamped. So it's going to be interesting to see who takes that top spot.
Well, hopefully the Stars can take that Central Division. But we're going to step aside for a quick break. Coming up, are the Dallas Cowboys the best team in the NFC? Find out next on SportsZone.
The poise and composure was outstanding. Just made some big-time throws really throughout the ball game that really allowed us to score points and extend the lead late in the ball game. He was outstanding.
We just heard from Cowboys head coach Jason Garrett after their victory over the Packers this weekend. His team is on an impressive 5-game winning streak as they head into their bye week, but there are still plenty of questions surrounding this team. So now we bring in Bria and Ronald. And guys, I want to ask you, is this Cowboys team, is this the best team in the NFC right now?
I would definitely say we're a top 3 team in the NFC. I don't think that we're the best, only because the fact that we lack some of the experience that the other teams have, such as the Vikings and the Falcons and Seahawks. But I do think we're just as talented as them, if not more. But they do definitely have more experience than we've had.
I do believe that the Cowboys are the best team in the NFC right now. We're still, of course, Romo's out, Dez is out, our key defensive players are out as well, and look at how the Cowboys are doing. So I definitely think that if we get all that back, that we can defeat those teams.
Yeah, well, they're certainly playing well. It's been a huge surprise with a rookie quarterback, and that's where I want to go. You mentioned Romo's not in. Do you anticipate them bringing him back? Do you think they should bring him back? That's really the question. Do you think Romo should be in there instead of Dak whenever Romo's healthy?
I don't believe that Romo should come back. Dak is doing way better than everybody thought he would. Coming in, he was in the the 4th round in the draft, and nobody thought that he would do what he's doing now. He broke Tom Brady's record from 2001. He's just doing everything that he should be doing as a rookie, and I just don't think they should break up that chemistry. They should just keep him in.
Now, here's my thing. I believe if Romo would have never gotten hurt and Dak never got the starting job and Romo has been playing this whole time, I do believe that we'd still probably be 5-1, if not 6-0. We probably had a better chance of being 6-0 with Romo. However, that's not the case. Romo got hurt and Dak is playing. And he's playing really well. Nobody expected him to play this well. So, I feel like the fact that he's played so well for so long, I feel like we should keep that momentum going until we need to put Romo in.
Okay, so you're saying maybe Dak starts having a slide as the season goes on, maybe hits a wall, maybe teams start preparing for him more and taking away what he does well. But do you think – so let's say the Cowboys make the playoffs. You don't think the team is better suited in the playoffs with Romo instead of a rookie?
I do think that we're better suited in the playoffs with Romo.
Okay, so isn't that all that matters?
Right now, though, we're not in the playoffs yet. So for now, Dak should start until we have that playoff spot solidified. Until then, keep the momentum going. I feel like once we get that playoff spot solidified, of course, put Romo in, let him get acclimated, because of course we're going to need him to win the Super Bowl, and you can't do that with the rookie.
Okay, so why not put Tony Romo in as soon as he's healthy, just so he can come in there and build as much chemistry? You talk about the chemistry that Dak's built, and that's what I think people are pretty worried about is, oh no, the chemistry is going to get shaken up. What chemistry are we talking about here? Is the offensive line going to stop learning how to block? Is Ezekiel not going to learn how to run? The formula for this team is running the football and protecting the quarterback, and the better quarterback, obviously, is Tony Romo. So it just seems to make sense, especially with you mentioning that they're better off in the playoffs, which, that's what actually matters, to put Romo in. But You disagree?
No, I don't agree. If Dak keeps doing what he's doing, keep him in. I think if Romo was totally healthy, everything's okay, yes, but I honestly don't believe that Romo will be what Tony Romo has been. I think he's just too injury prone, and I just don't want him to come in and then just.
But is it not worth at least seeing?
Well, here's my thing. It's not really so much the chemistry that I'm worried about. I do believe that we'll have chemistry with Romo. We'll have chemistry regardless of who our quarterback is. Like I said, we'd probably be 6-0 with Romo playing. My thing is his propensity to getting hurt is so high. I just don't feel like it's worth the risk of throwing him early. Don't throw him in the game early. Throw him in the season a little later on.
Okay, so how late are you talking, though? Because, I mean, if the season gets rolling, now you're in week 12, week 13, and now you're making a quarterback change before you go into the playoffs. I mean, it seems like if you're going to do it, you do it fairly early so you can see what you got with Romo. And if he has hit a wall, if he is too old now and he's not good, or he gets hurt soon, you put Dak back right in and you're right here where you left off, right?
You're right. You are right. My thing is, I think the best time to put him in, first of all, I want to say I don't think we should put him in anytime soon.
Okay.
Get that clear.
All right, fair.
But if we are going to put him in, I think the best time to put him in will be week 9 against the Browns because it's like practice. You know, he can go out there, he can get back in the groove of things, and that would be a good time to put him in if they're going to put him in. I don't think any other week would be a good decision.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Now I want to talk about the other rookie, Ezekiel, really fast. He's been unbelievable. Do you attribute the Cowboys' success more to him or more to Prescott? Real quick.
Dak.
You say
Straight
Dak?
up, yeah, Dak.
I'm going Zeke.
You're going Zeke?
Easily.
All right, I'm with Bria because the quarterback's the most position on the field. But the Cowboys are doing well, and hopefully they can keep that thing rolling. But a kneeling Colin Kaepernick was thrusted into the starting lineup on Sunday for the first time this season. Just how well did he perform? Our analysts give us their thoughts next. All eyes were on Colin Kaepernick this week as he got his first start of the season. Let's hear what he had to say after the game.
I think the message carries weight because people realize what's happening, what's going on, and that it's something that needs to be addressed, and that there's people's lives being taken and lives being affected by this on a daily basis. And it's something that more and more conversations are happening that need to happen. So ultimately, we can address this issue and create change.
Joining us now is Jocelyn Mitchell and Taylor Phillips. All right, guys, so Colin Kaepernick obviously has been under a heck of a lot of scrutiny over these last couple months. He got his first start this Sunday, so we'll talk about that here in a second. But I want to get to the main issue of Colin Kaepernick, his protesting, his kneeling during the national anthem during NFL football games. Did you agree with it? Did you not agree with it? Jocelyn, let's go with you.
I really feel that people are missing the perception of what he's doing. I get the fact that a lot of people may feel that they're offended by the fact that he's kneeling for the national anthem, but no one has ever stopped to realize why. And secondly, I mean, not the fact that this is the First Amendment and he's practicing that, so he has every right to do that. He's even spoken to a veteran who they talked and compromised and said that he should kneel. So I'm not understanding why people are going as far as buying a jersey only to burn it, because that's what's helping him become one of the highest sales in jerseys, which he also donated those proceeds to the organizations. So honestly, I kind of do agree. Actually, I do agree with what he's doing.
Taylor?
I think he touched on it in his interview, is getting the conversation going. That's the whole point. Whether people like it or not, it may be your right to disagree, but it's his right to voice his opinion in the first place. It's getting the conversation going, and I think Jocelyn touched on it. People are really looking at it the wrong way. It's not a patriotism thing. It's not like Colin Kaepernick's burning flags at the 50-yard line. Yeah. He is just trying to get people talking about a real issue that has been going on, and people are saying, well, it's already been talked about. It's his place to just play football. Athletes are celebrities. They have voices. You see it with the ESPYs, Steph Curry, LeBron. They all voice their opinions. They all want to do good for society. I don't think anything he's done, I mean, I was kind of going back and forth with this. I don't like seeing people not show full respect for the national anthem, but then seeing him start doing this, when I go to games now, I look for it. I'm looking around to see what people are doing. People who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. I see people on their phones during the national anthem. Some people don't take their hats off. So if you're going to criticize Colin Kaepernick, you better make sure you're doing exactly what you claim to be doing.
Yeah, you're right. And the way he went about it, I think a lot of times, at least in the beginning, people were bothered by the way he went about it. Do you think that in these last few months or few weeks, has your opinion changed from when you first saw it to now? Like, did it strike you as something that you didn't like when you first saw it, and then as he's gotten a chance to talk about it and more, are you more open to it, or do you feel the same way?
I feel the same way. Let me just go ahead and get straight to the point. But I think it's funny how by him doing this, which is a peaceful protest, which is way better than marching, which also marching killed innocent lives, including cops, he's actually proving the reason why he's doing that. He received death threats a couple months ago. People are buying his shirts and jerseys and putting it on YouTube, burning them. And it's like, you're helping me prove my point. For one, you're buying my jerseys, so I don't understand why. Yeah. But, I mean, yeah.
I think she touched on one thing, though, with the cops. This thing with the socks and the pig and the cop hat, that to me was not, you're trying to really put yourself out there. Don't give people a reason to get mad at you, especially living here in Dallas, what we went through here. Cops, not all cops are bad, but at the same time, you do have to address it. But he could have, I think that's the one thing, she's absolutely right. Peaceful protest, no one's getting hurt. We live in a very violent time now. School shootings, name it. There's a lot of different violent things. Don't give people a reason to be violent. I think there is still a middle ground for cops you can get along. I think they are making leaps and bounds to make that better, but we're still far away from things being perfect.
All right, and let's fast forward to this Sunday now. So he gets his first start. He was heckled in Buffalo quite a bit. I mean, I saw T-shirts that they were selling outside the stadium that were anti-Kaepernick that I can't even say on air, really. But do you think, and he didn't play overly well, his team didn't play overly well, but do you think his message will be heard even more if he's able to put a good season together and play well?
Well, for one, he's definitely starting, especially with the compromise of the contract that they had. And two, there's no way that the stands and the fans is going to distract him because even though they lost, he still did a miraculous job. He had the most rushing yards on the team, and he just did a great job.
I don't think his play on the field should take anything away from his message. If we were just going to go off of people's popularity or performance, that would really be a moot point for as far as what he's trying to say. If I'm not good at my job, but I have a good point about this kind of issue, doesn't mean my point doesn't count. True. You should separate football and your ideals. But one thing that I really noticed in his start, he was missing receivers that were wide open. He did have one touchdown to Torrey Smith that he underthrew. But at the same time, the stat that really stuck out to me was he was 4 of 11 when under pressure. And he needs to step that up.
Yeah, and he's facing a lot of pressure on and off the field. So we'll see how the season shakes out for Colin Kaepernick. But that is a wrap for today's show. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at UNT SportsZone. And don't forget to check out Mean Green Game Day right here on NTTV 2 hours before every Mean Green kickoff. And we will catch you next week on SportsZone.